Hey, greetings everybody, GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. We finished off Chronicles 2 on the last one. We're set up to kind of start talking about the beginning of the Third War, but we are now going to finish off the novel, or at least get a little closer to it. So stay a while and listen to Chapter 28, the last official chapter in Beyond the Dark Portal. Turalyon emerged from the rift, blinking. Is this Draenor? They had escaped Draenor's destruction by stepping through into another world, one they could barely make sense of. Khadgar and the other Magi had shielded them from the tremors passing through the rift, and once it had quieted, they had returned, hoping to search for any of their comrades that might have survived. But as his eyes registered what they saw, Turalyon jerked to a halt, staring. Only Illyria's tug on his hand reminded him to move out of the way so the rest could emerge as well. It is. What's left of it, anyway, Khadgar said. Turalyon recognized the rubble of the fallen dark portal behind them, with Honor Hold and Hellfire Citadel in the distance. The cracked red earth was the same as well, but the sky. It rippled with color now, and ribbons of light shot through it like multi-hued lightning bolts that traveled across instead of ever touching the earth. The sun had vanished and the sky was a dark red, but he could see the moon hovering high above, looking far larger than it ever had before. A second sphere, this one rosy, was low on the horizon, and a third, smaller and a bright blue, floated just above that one. Wisps like tendrils of cloud drifted here and there. And while the earth was the same in color and consistency, not far away Turalyon saw a small wedge of cracked ground. Only it was perhaps 100 feet up. It bobbed slightly, buffeted by the fierce winds that raged all around them, but otherwise stayed in place. Other fragments floated here and there as well. The damage has sundered reality as we know it, Khadgar continued. Gravity, space, perhaps even time itself no longer function properly here. Khadgar's words were swallowed by a tearing sound beneath them. Turalyon grabbed his arm with one hand and Illyria's with the other, instinctively tugging them both back toward what had been the rest of the land. "Fall back!" Turalyon shouted, though he wasn't sure the men could hear him over the rending of the earth, of the howling of the winds overhead. "Back away from the rift!" They could see him, however, and he gestured to the west, toward Honor Hold. They ran then, all order forgotten in their panic, and not a moment too soon. As Turalyon pulled Khadgar and Illyria along, the ground beneath their feet began to crumble. They hurled themselves toward the ground beyond, barely reaching it before the ledge behind them collapsed, chunks of rock and earth falling away. Before, the dark portal had been partially encircled by mountains to the east, and beyond that had been the sea. Now most of the mountains had vanished, and shockingly, so had the waves. Only empty space waited to swallow the falling debris, as the world's remains now hung in a great yawning darkness, shot through with ripples and flashes of light here and there. "Sir," one of the men piped up, wasn't that where the rift was?" "Yes," Turalyon said, "it was." The rift through which they had first fled Draenor and then returned to it had indeed been on that ledge, and had collapsed when the earth beneath it had shattered, leaving behind only the remnants of the dark portal. There was silence, and Turalyon sensed their growing despair. "Look there," he told them, spotting a familiar cluster of buildings a short distance away. "Honor Hold still stands. We built it to serve as our stronghold here on Draenor, and so it will be." He turned to look at them, dusty, bloody, exhausted. "We knew when we came through we might not be returning. Like, we expected to die, but we didn't. The portal's closed. We did what we came here to do. What we do now, that's up to us. There are others still out there. We need to find them, bring them back. We'll explore, make new allies, keep fighting the Horde, whatever's left of it here, so they don't ever try to do something like this again. The light is still with us. We still have a job to do. This world will be what we choose to make of it." Illyria stepped beside him, her eyes shining. He squeezed her hand tightly. Turalyon glanced over at Khadgar, who nodded, his young eyes crinkling in an approving smile. The paladin again looked toward his men. They were still worried, still unsure, but the despair and panic were gone. "This world will be what we choose to make of it." "Come on," Turalyon said, and pointed to Honor Hold. "Let's go home." All right, so I guess they just temporarily pop through a rift. They don't really talk about what was on the other side of that. They used it as sort of like a pocket dimension, and then they hop back over. It's closed off. The rifts are closed now, and they are in the Burning Crusade as we fully know it, floating in the air, chaos, and they're going to set up an honor hold. So how long they stay there, my guess would be until the Burning Crusade expansion, where they're going to be trapped there until such time as they can reopen the portal or somebody reopens it. All right, and meanwhile, we know back in Azeroth, they're making monuments in their honor. Okay, this episode is done. It's in the pipe, 5x5, and we will catch up on the epilogue next time on Lore of Warcraft. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. See ya.